Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Bluefin Design and I'm Nikhil. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about user flows or flowcharts or task flows. They have many names, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So as you know, we're in the middle of a UX case study on the topic of language translation. And this is user flows is actually part of the design phase, wherein we are going to be working on the information architecture, wireframes, design system, and then the high fidelity mockups for language translation. So this phase is actually going to be exciting. But I've also done a lot of videos all the way from UX research for like market research, user research, and then the define phase, and did like videos about user interviews, focus groups, contextual inquiries. So if you want to check all the previous videos, I'll include a link down in the description. So please do check them out if you want to follow along with me through the entire UX design process, from research to analysis to the design and then testing. So yeah, we're going to be looking at user flows today. So let's get started. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what is a user flow, why to use user flows, what are the different types of user flows that you can use in your projects, when to use user flows, and also share some good examples of user flows or flowcharts. And then I'll talk about some software tools that you can use to build or design the user flows. So again, user flows is basically a diagram that displays the complete path the user takes when using a product or a service. So it actually lays out the user's movement, like a step-by-step movement of the user from start to finish, mapping out each and every step that the user takes. So naturally, it begins with the entry point from where the user starts interacting with your product, and then maps out every step until the end of their process or the outcome. It allows the designers to actually evaluate and optimize the user experience, because it actually allows to map the entire workflow, and then be able to then the users or the designers will be able to kind of optimize that. So if you know the workflow, only then you can optimize it. So user flows actually help you to understand the workflow of the user. Um, why should be using user flows? The first reason is to create an intuitive interface. So without knowing, again, like I said just a moment ago, without knowing what the workflow is or what the step-by-step process is that the user is going to take, you cannot improve it, or you cannot make that intuitive. So to create intuitive experiences or intuitive interfaces, it's kind of required that you understand the user flows and understand them in detail. The second reason why we should be using user flows is to evaluate the existing experiences. So for existing products like user flow charts, they help us understand what's working, what's not working for the user, obviously, and then what are some of the areas that require improvement, or what are some of those workarounds that the users take to kind of complete their tasks when using your product as a tool. It's important to understand for us as designers if there are any tasks or steps that the users miss, or there are any extra steps that they have to take. So if you think about those extra steps and the user's process, and map them out in the user flows, I think it can naturally lead to creating better experiences. The third reason why we should be using user flows is to present your product to the different stakeholders within maybe your organization or with your client or your users. So user flows or flowcharts are able to communicate the entire steps and the process and the flow of your product with the different stakeholders. So it makes them understand what the process is. Let's talk about the different types of user flows. So The first type is task flow, and this actually just focuses on how the users travel through the platform or the product. Um, while performing a specific task. So this is a key here. Like, task flows only lay out the process for a specific task in your product. So there may be like multiple tasks that the users can take in your product, but with the task flow, it only highlights the specific task. The next type is a wire flow. And as the name suggests, it's basically a combination of wireframes and flowcharts. So they utilize the wireframes and like the design of individual screens along with the flow. So it's easier to understand. But it's again the same thing. It's basically a task flow with the combination of wireframes. So it only highlights the process of one specific task. User flow is basically it basically focuses on the target audience and how they will interact with the entire product. So a user flow is basically a more detailed type of a flow chart where it not only specifies the process, but also it actually specifies all the different tasks and all the different possibilities that the user may take while using your product. So let's look at some examples. So this is a good example of a task flow where we kind of map out one single process, and this is how it will lay out. There's an entry point and there is a set of some actions, one after the other. And there's the exit point or the success. This is a good example of this gives you a good understanding of a wire flow wherein it's still the same task flow, but now we're making use of those wireframes to understand, to make the point. And this is now a combination of the wireframes and then the task flows in the form of a detailed flowchart. So this again, like it's a good example of a user flow where we are mapping out different processes or different processes in the design. So when should we using user flows? Well, UX flows, like they are basically formulated or created early in the process, in the design process, during the planning or just after you've finished doing your research. And this basically forms the foundation on which your product is built, because as I said earlier, like if you don't know what the process is, how will you kind of create an intuitive experience? So user flows or flowcharts are basically the foundations for your product, and then they can also serve as references for when you're adding new designers to your team, so they can work off of the design based on the user flows. User flows can also help you determine how many screens are needed, what order are those screens needed, and what components are required for those screens. So they can also help in building your design system and also help the development teams so that they can prepare the technical architecture for the product. And as UX designers, UX flows or flowcharts are kind of your deliverables. So when you submit your work along the way, along the process with your client from time to time, when the time comes, your flowchart is actually part of your deliverables. So again, let's look at one good example, like a detailed example of a UX flowchart. And this is credits to careerfoundry.com. It lays out the entire process, but not only the entire process, we'll actually lay out the different processes or different tasks that are there in your product. The next example is again a good example of our detailed user flow, wherein we're also making use of these high fidelity mockups. So you have a choice between using wireframes or high fidelity mockups if you have those, and then depict the flow of the process of the product using those mockups. And this is again a very complex flow chart. I just wanted to share this with you so you understand that when you're working on a real world product, the workflows often tend to be this complex or even more complex if you're working on a larger product. So let's talk about some of the software or tools that you can use to build these flowcharts or user flows. The first one is Xshore. And again, this is one of the popular design tools. It's available for Windows and Mac, and it has both free and paid subscriptions available. The other one is Figma, and it's again the same as Xshore, but it's also available for the web. So you only need a browser. Um, the next one is Mock Plus. So it's again like Figma, available for the web as well, and it's free and paid. The other one is Xmind. It's the difference here is only paid version, so you need to kind of understand and need to know what you're doing before using this. The next one is Just Mind, and this helps, like it's a tool to do multiple things which you can use to create user flows as well, and it has both free and paid versions available. But the one that I've been using a lot is draw.io. It's completely free and it's available for Windows, Mac, or even a web version. So it'll allow you to create detailed web user flowcharts. And I've actually found success using this one, so I'd recommend that to you. That's all for this video. If you found this helpful, please leave a like. It really helps me and it really helps the YouTube algorithm. And subscribe to my channel if you like my content. Share this video with your friends and your classmates or your network, so more people can benefit from this content and they are able to use these tools to build better user flows and ultimately better designs. And if you have any questions, just comment down below. I'll try my best to answer those. If you want to book a call with me, I've actually included the link down in the description. So you can click the link and book a 30-minute session or a 1-hour session. If you want to talk about your capstone project or your next idea, or just you want some feedback on your research or your designs, anything related to UX, you can book a call with me. Thank you so much.